is literally like a superpower. When that switch clicks in your brain, when you've really healed and you've let it go, and then you embrace these gifts that you have, that you receive from your trauma, and you realize, man, like, I am who I am because of the trauma I went through. And I'm an amazing human being that now has these superpowers that they could use for good. You guys are sitting here with me. You guys see my body language. I'm stone cold serious about this. And when you think about your trauma in that way, and you think about, I'm gonna unlock my superpowers, and you start to run towards that, it's amazing how quick you can heal.
This is episode 177 with Walt McKinley. Enjoy.
Welcome to your go-to podcast for the pool and spa industry. My name is Tyler Rasmussen.
And my name is Greg Villafania. And this is the Pool Chasers Podcast. Well, thank you so much, Walt. Really appreciate you taking the time to be here in the Pool Chaser studio. I have to say you were on Brad Levitt's AFT Construction podcast, and it was probably one of the most moving stories I had ever heard. And I've listened and read tons of self-help books and different things like that, and they helped for a little bit, but I felt like your story was just so genuine. It was so difficult for me to listen to it, but it truly did help because you're just brave. I couldn't think of any other thing to say because everything you were talking about was reflecting with it and was like, that's who I need to be. And I feel like there's so many other people out there that have some type of, mental issues, mental wellness, or whatever we're calling it, that really need help and need to hear your story and everything that you're about. So can you introduce yourself to the listeners?
Yeah, so thank Greg. Appreciate that. Appreciate you and Tyler having me back on. And honestly, wow, what a blessing. Thank you for that. I won't even call it a compliment. I think that's some of the highest praise that you can give somebody. So I appreciate that. The reason I decided to share even on Brad's podcast, I appreciate you calling me brave to share, but I don't even consider it bravery. It's my calling. My calling is to share my story to help other people know that they can overcome the pain and the trauma that they've been through and live an extremely abundant life. Not abundant monetarily, but abundant, full of joy, great relationships, and everything else that comes with it. So, but yeah, my name is Walt McKinley. I'm a former 20-year career Naval Intelligence Officer, retired, was in corporate America for the last 5 years before I pivoted to become a generational trauma coach, focusing primarily on helping men learn how to break the generational cycle of abuse and fight to be the heroes of their own family. There's a lot of pain in the world, a lot of pain people are holding on to, and it's time to start to let that stuff go. I've been married 22 years, been with my wife 24 years. She's an incredible woman. She loved me when I was still broken into a million pieces, and I had a lot of work to do to be who I am today. I've been blessed with two amazing teenage daughters. They're just incredible young women, powerful young women, and they really, the day that both of them were born, they completed my humanity. And so now I do the coaching, I do motivational speaking, and in schools and in companies. So life is good. I cannot complain, and I feel blessed to be here with you guys today.
Well, thank you so much. We appreciate it. And I think I more meant being brave in getting through those situations, because listening to it and forgiving, and you're going to get to all of that. If anybody has any issues with forgiving people and it's affecting your health and your mental wellness and all those things, this is the best message you can listen to, because you got one life and you have to figure it out. And we're all really in control of where our mind goes and the actions that we take. So if you wouldn't mind, we'd love to, go back from the beginning of, your story.
I used to joke, I live a life I could have went on Oprah and talked about. And, I say that comically, but, it was a true tragedy to triumph story. And so I spent the first 16 years of my life, I moved 14 times that I can actually recall, between my father, my mother, and also foster parents. Sometimes living in homes, sometimes apartments, sometimes on the street, never knowing where I was going to be at. So there's a lot of chaos just from that perspective. But I was abused by every adult that I came into contact with until just prior to my 16th birthday, and I'll get to that piece of the story. Really heinous and torturous things. My first memory that I've ever had is in a foster home at 3 years old. We were taken out of my mother's home because we were beaten black and blue by my stepfather, and the babysitter saw the bruises and she reported it, and then so we were removed, put into a foster home with a lady who really did torture my sister and I. We were locked in closets, we were chained to beds, we were malnourished, and my first memory is her literally pinning me on the ground. And I'll never forget, I can't see her face, I can't see her body. All I remember is an adult figure laying on me, pinning my arm underneath her body so she could control my hand and pushing splinters underneath my fingernails. And I'm screaming and I'm crying and I'm writhing in pain, and I passed out. So she slaps me in my face to wake me up because I think she was afraid she may have killed me, but I just passed out from the pain. And then she stopped and she threw me into the closet for I don't really remember how long at that age, to be honest with you. And not too long after that, my mom, she went to some of her classes to get us custody back. She was able to get custody back of us, and we ended up moving in with her and my stepfather again. And so there was a lot of kicks, slap, punches, neglect. You know, my mother never hit me, but it still was abuse, being neglected and not being loved in the way that I needed to be loved as a child, because she struggled to even love herself, to protect herself, much less her kids. The next big memory I have is of doing a line of meth off of my He-Man lunchbox at 5.5 years old, because that's what we saw. And the babysitter kid took it from the place where we saw them doing it all the time and pulling it from underneath the couch in a box they had, doing that. And that's how much. So I'm only saying that to describe the level of chaos. It was very atypical, outside of the norm. And you know, in third grade, my dad came and picked us up from school. I didn't even know who he was. I hadn't even seen him since I was really little. And he shows up, the principal tells us, yep, that's your dad. And next thing you know, my dad kidnaps us from my mom in the middle of the day, and we go from him at California down to San Diego to live with him and my stepmother and my little brother's mother, but he wasn't born yet. And I'll never forget the imagery of my mom chasing after the car through the parking lot because she caught wind that he was there. But we were gone, and just looking out the window at her. So go to live with my dad. You know, he hit us quite a bit, but his abuse got much worse later as I got older. My stepmother, when she would get pissed at my dad, she would take it out on me because he would leave. So I reminded her of him, so she's taking it out on me. So she hit me. She bloodied my nose quite a few times. She made me drink scalding hot water out of a coffee pot. So she'd, without the coffee, put the hot water in there and make me drink it from a cup where it would blister my lips up and burn me as a way to get back at my dad so he could see what she did to me when he got home. So not too long after that, he took us back to my mother's in Hemet. Literally didn't get out of his car. Said, go to the door and knock on the door. We didn't even know where we were at. Went and knocked on the door. My mom answers. My sister and I are like, crap. Wow. My mom didn't even know. We didn't have any clothes, anything, except for what we had on, and my dad just took off. Just left. Didn't say nothing. We didn't even know what we were doing. Made us go knock on the door and left. And, you know, and then not too long after that, you know, it's just so back and forth. Not too long after that, we ended up going to live with, we moved to Indiana right after that with my mother. She flew back with my little sister, who was a newborn. We drove with my stepfather, who beat us the whole way there. You know, literally yanked me by my hair out of a store because I spent too long playing Galaga on the arcade machine while he smoked weed out next to the U-Haul. So make it there. A lot of abuse is happening. A lot of tumultuousness is happening. My book called Monsters in the House that we'll talk about towards the end, this is the reason I called up Monsters in My House, and this is the depiction on the front. So his version of discipline at that point, at 7 and 8 years old, was to throw me in the basement in the dark by myself. So he threw me against a couple pictures and broke glass on my back and cut my head open and would kick and punch me. But one day he decided to throw me into the basement. So he grabs me by my hair, because I was wobbly-kneed because he was hitting me so hard, grabbed me by my hair and he threw me down into the basement. And I'll never forget, and I want to be descriptive because this is important in this piece, I'll never forget punching and slamming the door to try to get out. And he opened the door, and it's pitch dark down there. It's concrete cinder block. It's concrete pad down there. It's a decent-sized basement. And your 7 and 8-year-old imagination's running wild, right? You remember just jumping on your bed because you thought the monster was going to grab your ankle. So imagine being in the basement. And I'll never forget, he threw the door open, put his hand up like he was going to hit me, and I cowered. And he goes, "Get down to the bottom." And I got down to the bottom, and he grabbed a mask that I was terrified of. It was a werewolf mask. It had a white face and green mohawk and some snarly teeth. He knew I was terrified of this mask. And I thought it was down in the basement with me, which is why I was extra freaking out. But he went and grabbed it, and he held it up so I could see it and threw it down at me. And so in that moment, with me being 7 years old, 8 years old, standing on that staircase, I had to choose between two monsters. I had to choose between the one at the top of the steps, and I had to choose between the one at the bottom of the steps. That werewolf that came to life in my imagination that I could feel and hear breathing on me. And I remember as a little boy sitting there, and I curled myself up into a ball, and I'm sitting there and I'm rocking back and forth, and I'm screaming and I'm screaming and I'm screaming, and nobody's coming. And I'm crying and I'm crying and I'm crying, and nobody's coming. So at some point I stopped screaming. At some point I stopped crying. Now I'm just a whimpering piece of humanity sitting there on that floor by myself. In that moment, and I didn't realize it then, but I realize it now, in my darkest moment of my whole life at that point, I really felt a warmth. And it was like, I couldn't see a light because there was no light down there, right? I felt a light, and I felt a warmth come over me. I know now, as a spiritual man, that was God protecting me. Because the reality is I should probably have schizophrenia, something, right, from going through that. And I remember coming out of the basement that night, and it's dark. I still had my pajamas on because it was in the morning when I went in there. And so that type of abuse went on for a while. At 10, 11 years old, I go back to live with my dad.
By the way, we're not saying much because there's nothing positive going to come out of my mouth right now.
Right.
I'm sure you get that a lot.
Yeah. But what I will say, it's a triumphant comeback. So just hang with me on this part. And so I moved back with my dad. He did some really torturous things to my sister and I while we lived with him again. It was a 1-bedroom, tiny little apartment with bunk beds in the room. It was horrible. My sister ran away to live with my mother when she was in 6th grade and I was in 4th grade. I didn't go. And when the police came and asked me about the abuse that was happening in the house, I was so terrified to say anything because I felt like he would kill me if I did, that I lied and said there wasn't abuse happening. So my sister, that was the first time her and I were separated. We spent all those years going through it together. And so fast forward, we end up moving back to Yuma, Arizona, which is where my family's from, okay? At this point, I'm gonna jump ahead a couple years. The abuse is still happening in pretty heavy doses. Probably, I'd say minimum 4 times a week, plus the constant daily abuse, and you're never gonna amount to anything. You're a piece of crap, and I hate your mother, and I hate you. And my dad's dating this new lady, and so she took his mind off of me for a while, which I was okay with. Like, I didn't care if he didn't care if I was there. I wasn't getting hit nearly as much because she was around. And I'll never forget, so I'm 13 years old, and he's talking about going to Disneyland. So in my head, I'm thinking, hell yeah. Like, at 13, I'll wear the Mickey Mouse ears. I don't even care. Like we're so poor, I've never been able to do something like that. And she leaves the house, and he goes, "What makes you think you're going?" And I said, "I thought I was going." And he goes, "I love her, so why would I take you?" And that weekend, I almost took my life at 13. And this was the next time I felt the presence of God. And this is how I know what I'm doing is meant for a greater purpose. And I'm sitting there, and I'm so pissed, and I'm so angry, and I write this suicide letter, and I go into the kitchen, and I'm like hyping myself up to have the courage to take my own life. Grab a knife, and I go into the bathroom, and still to this day, I don't know why I turned the water on over to the sink. I turn the water on. I put my wrist there. I take the knife and I jab it into my left wrist, right? And so it's poking into my skin, and I'm like getting ready to pull downward because I heard that's what you were supposed to do somewhere. I don't even know why I thought that, right? Pull downward. And it was like I went into paralysis. I literally couldn't move my body. Inside, I was like, why can't I move? I'm still wanting to do what I'm there to do. And it was like somebody shook my right hand and I dropped the knife. And I kid you not, I walked back out into the living room, almost felt like I was floating. I walked back out into the living room and I felt like that day, it was like a suit of armor came over me. And I would need that armor for the next couple of years in the abuse that I was going through. Because now I was bigger, so the abuse was heavier. It was getting beat so bad with the belt till I was crumpled on the floor and not going to school for a week because I had black and blue bruises all over my neck and face and back and legs. And it was getting hit with the cast iron skillet in the face because I didn't clean it good enough, had a little grease on it. It was horrible. But this armor just kind of kept me protected. And so then this all culminated with me testifying against my father in court at 16. And I say a woman made me the man I am today because my aunt, so I'm 15, she's 24, newly married with a kid. She starts just making up excuses to come get me. She's taking her 2-year-old son to the circus and she wants me to go. Like, it didn't matter what it was, right? Any excuse she could have to come get me. It was my dad's the oldest brother. She's the youngest sibling, this little sister, right? Super young still herself, figuring out life. But she was willing to take a chance on a really broken kid because she just has a heart of gold where she wanted to make a difference. And she just couldn't stand to see it anymore. But she knew my dad would threaten jail to anybody who would try to take me and my family. He would be like, I'm gonna get you for kidnapping. He called the police on my grandma before when she was gonna take me, saying she was trying to kidnap me. Super control, right? So CPS, now mind you, this is 30 years ago, so Child Protective Services says he has to get hit again now that we filed a claim. And we're going to send a CPS, not agent, counselor, or whatever you want to call it. We're going to send somebody to the house to do a health and welfare check. So I'm terrified, like, oh my God, if you guys send somebody out here, he's going to kill me. He's going to know I told, for real told. So my aunt's like, he even touches you. She felt so horrible because she's like, I think he's going to kill you. Like, he's not stopping. She goes, if he even touches you, just run. Just run. And I was sitting on a porch with my friends. This is literally the day my life changed. Sitting on the porch with my friends, and a girl takes my hat. She's flirting, right? She takes my hat, takes off running, and I'm, woo, chasing her down the street. Woo, woo, we catch her. I can hear my dad coming. What the F did I tell you, boy? And my dad wasn't big. He was like 5'9", 160, but he was in the military, so he had like that booming military voice, and he's chasing me down the street. And I'm walking towards him, and I'm like, Dad. And so there's 5 of my friends and me. And I'm like, Dad, she took my hat. I was just chasing her to get it. And he was like, bull crap, bam, and punched me with his left hand because he was left-handed. So my hat's crooked on my head, and I'm like starting to cry. And I'm like, my friends are looking like, whoa. And I'm like, I was just getting the hat. We were literally walking back. And he's like, you're an effing liar. And he hits me again and knocks the hat off my head. And I'll never forget this moment. I'll never forget this moment as long as I live. It was almost like I picked up the hat in a sprinter position is how I remember it. And almost 16 years of abuse flashed in front of me. And all those times I could have tried to run or get away and I was too scared to do it, was sitting there and I'm like, this is your chance to run. So even though I know CPS said they're going to take me out of the house, I'm terrified that they're not going to do it. And I'll never forget, I just said run and took off in a sprint. I mean, Usain Bolt couldn't have caught me in that moment. I was running so dang fast, right?
Right.
And I could hear him yelling, 1, 2, 3, you better get over. And he's just yelling. Well, he's walking around the apartments looking for us. So we take off all the way around the corner and come back. Like sneak, super stealth back into my buddy's apartment. He didn't know where he lived and called my aunt who called the police. And so that night my father was arrested. And he's yelling as he's getting in the car, like, I hope your friends were worth it. You happy boy. You put me in jail, boy. And the 6'5" cop kneeled down on a knee. He was so dang tall, and he's like right next to my face, and he's like, "Son, nobody deserves to be treated like this." He's like, "Your father thinks he's big and bad. He'll be okay. Well, we're taking him. Don't you worry about it." And my aunt took me to her house, and I never had to live with one of my abusers again. Wow. And so I'll stop there for a second in case you guys have questions, because now starts the kind of the comeback story of it.
I think the biggest question I have, and to make this, if there's anybody wondering why we might be talking about this, a lot of it has to do with, we had a pool service company and we've been surrounded by individuals that come from broken homes, and they have poor decision making, and they take things personal, maybe anxiety. There's all these different things that sometimes we don't understand. We haven't had the same training, if you will. And I think it's important to hear this story because, you know, Walt is one of the very few that has come forward, and, you know, you're openly talking about this. But I think there's so many that bottle that stuff up and they don't talk about it. You just look crazy because you're working for a company or you're the owner of a company, and you have tendencies to do things that nobody really understands. And I think by hearing this, you'll understand that this is a really rough story, but there are people that have to deal with it. And it's how we're going to take care of ourselves, but how you can take people under your wing. Hearing your story, I wish there was somebody a little bit closer. I mean, thank God, you know, was your aunt?
Yeah.
Your aunt, you know, took you in. But it would have been nice if there was somebody just close enough to see what was going on and handle it and stick up for you and put a change to that. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But something I am curious about is, did you ever figure out why you were getting so much physical abuse? I mean, it was just, you know, you talked about how they were raised a certain way and alcohol, and you said military. So I'm sure there was maybe some things there. Like, what exactly was going on?
Yeah, so I think all of them went through abuse. Maybe not even from a family member. My dad was molested by a babysitter when he was a boy, and then when he was 16, there was a guy in their neighborhood that groomed some of the kids, and the guy molested him. And so it was unresolved anger he never dealt with. And I think, you know, what you say is so true. Like, sometimes we don't even know it's childhood trauma that's causing us to lash out or be angry or be frustrated. And maybe you yell at your kids and you're like, God, why am I yelling at them? Like, I know I don't want to be like that, but it's uncontrollable. And in that moment, you're triggered because it's unresolved. You have to deal with that baggage you're hanging on to and drop the pack in order to unlock an elevated version of yourself, a version of yourself you deserve, and that your immediate family member, the people you love the most, deserve too. So when I realized hurt people hurt other people, when I realized they had their own abuse that they never actually rectified and dealt with, and we'll talk about the 4 things that I did to overcome the trauma, but one of them is forgiveness. And man, that was hard. That was the hardest piece for me. It allowed me to forgive them. Not that I ran to them and said, you're good, you're absolved of everything. It didn't make it okay. It didn't mean I didn't still have boundaries with those people. What it did is say, I can let go now, because forgiveness was 100% for me. So I could let go of the pain that was sitting below my chest at all times. So for me, I think just having an understanding that nobody sets out to hurt anybody. Some people are so angry and desperate and in despair that they just don't know how to control it. So it wasn't like they hated Walt McKinley. They hated themselves, and they took it out on me. And that's why 78% of abuse is perpetrated by family members, because it's unresolved, because it's embarrassing. We got to clear our name. We don't want to talk about it, so we sweep it under the rug, and it continues for generations. And I'm on a mission to change that.
You have anything to add?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's a deep story, man. My childhood is quite opposite of that, and that's always been kind of what my Greg and I connect, because, you know, he has not the same background as you, but, you know, a tough childhood too. So it's kind of hearing all that brings me back to a place, on your mom's porch. So it's tough for me to even think about it, but that's difficult, man. It makes me more grateful for how I'm raised and my parents raised me, but we all have certain things we go through that are maybe not as deep as what that is to you, but everybody has their own individual struggles, and I think what you said, like, we've always in this industry or in business dealt with people who have things that we may not be aware of, and we're always too quick to judge. And I think, it's really good for people to hear this kind of story, and you may not have been through the same physical abuse, but you've been through some type of abuse or some type of thing in your life that's affected how you forgive people or how you walk through your life. So, like, man, I don't know. It's crazy.
Like, I want to touch on that a little bit, because first of all, like, bravo to you as a human being for being there for somebody. Because I had a friend that was like that. Their family was there for me like that too. Their mom always called me their adopted son, and we were super tight, right? And so I think it's amazing that you didn't have to go through that. I love that. Like, that's what it should be like. But the fact that you were able to be such a good friend for somebody who had their own trauma that they went through, and be there for them and understand maybe those times where they were frustrated and they lashed out or they did whatever. And then now you guys as men being in a situation where iron sharpens iron, and you guys have created a company, sold a company, you guys own this, you guys are doing other big things. I think it's such a testament to the support men need to give each other. Because look, guys, this alpha male, nobody cares, work harder, bull crap that we hear is a way for men to cover up the pain that they're really hiding, that they need to let go of. Because the reality is, being in fellowship with other men, with like-minded men, with God-fearing men, where you could be vulnerable, has a healing property in itself, but it makes you a different human. And as men, we're taught, bite your upper lip, don't cry. Like, that's not what boys do. You're acting like a girl. Like, all these things we're told, right? Mm-hmm. To teach you not to be vulnerable just makes us weak. The true measure of strength is being vulnerable, because being vulnerable opens you up to the potential to be unhurt. And if you could be vulnerable, you have real strength. That's the difference. And that's why I think this, because the world needs positive masculinity. Mm-hmm. This toxicity that nobody cares, work harder, it just drives me bananas. It's right. Just a way for people to mask their pain. So men out there, like I'm telling you guys, even for me, I have to remind myself of this even today, because it's programmed, right? So it's like working a different muscle in your brain. Be vulnerable. Like, have those moments where you talk to somebody if you're struggling, because if you don't, it will eat you alive. So.
I agree. I will say we've done a lot of amazing things together, starting from playing sports together in high school all the way up to where we are now. But in all reality, it's been very difficult. I think, for anybody that's been in my life, because you said this on Brad's show, that, on the outside, you look like everything is cool and you're a certain way, and you have identity issues. I had that for a long time as a big cover up, where you're acting like, you're the man and you're just working and doing this, and it's just a cover up to bury all the things you don't want to take the time to figure out. But, for Ty, being there from the very beginning, seeing a lot of different things, it's kind of crazy that somebody so close to you at like a certain point in time, like I could almost like hurt him and other people the way other people have hurt me, and it's, and the reason we talk about that is because every time it happened, like, I felt like shit afterwards for just tearing people apart or being physical or doing whatever it may be. I always felt, like shit. And that's why, we don't have to go down this rabbit hole, but it's been so hard to forgive because it's like, I love Tyler. I love my wife. I love this person. I hate my parents because you freaking made this happen. I see you in everything that happens. Everything in my life that's not perfect, I blame you. I blame the situation that I went through. And I know damn well a lot of people have been through, far worse, but it doesn't matter. It's my own thing that I have to deal with, just like you had to figure out how to deal with your stuff. But in my head, it's like when something happens, I want to make you feel pain because I feel like you've never dealt with shit. I want to make you feel how I feel.
Real pain, too.
Everybody. And that's not right because you don't know. I can't believe the patience that Tyler has, to be honest. I mean, we talk through things, but I'm not proud. I've never been proud of any of it, just being honest. And I'm just saying it because if there's anybody out there that deals with this, like partnerships, our partnership probably shouldn't have worked. If it was anybody else, we would have been in that statistic of it not working out because nobody would have been able to, because it's like, if it's not Greg's way, it's the highway and everybody's going to hear about it. Going to make an example out of this person in this situation. And it's not right because high blood pressure, I've had everything, I've in just trying to like figure the whole thing out. And I read somewhere about the identity issues, especially as you get older, that is a real struggle because you're like, who am I? I tried to be somebody for so long, and then you're facing these other demons and all these things going on. And I feel like this is probably going to resonate with a lot of people listening because we've all had some type of trauma in our life. It could be something as like a divorce, out of nowhere. I know people that have gone through that, and it breaks my heart because they didn't deserve that. They checked all the right boxes, made all the right decisions. And that's something you got to live with the rest of your life. Like that's a whole, everybody's got different issues. You know what I mean?
Losing a loved one. That's trauma.
Yeah.
And I want to key on two different things you said. One, whether it's 5 minutes or 15 years of abuse is irrelevant. Abuse is abuse. And I hear people say like, well, Walt, mine wasn't as bad as yours. All you do when you say that is diminish how you really feel about it and add shame to your feelings subconsciously because you don't feel like you should be as angry or whatever the emotion is because somebody else had it, quote unquote, worse than you. Abuse is abuse. And whether it's 5 minutes or 15 years, you have to deal with the emotion behind that and how it affected you. And, you said something and I don't even know if you realize this. You said, I love my wife. I love my kids. I love Tyler. You didn't say you love yourself.
Yeah.
Right? You didn't say you love yourself. And you said, I'm angry at my parents. What you don't realize is that you have amazing gifts that your trauma's given you. Empathy, grit, resilience, like the wherewithal to take a shot on building a company, the fortitude to push through on those things that are really hard in life. You're still standing here today as a man with a wife and kids. And I'm sure if I asked you, you'd say he's an incredible friend. But you don't love yourself. But when you start loving yourself, the way you love everybody else looks different. When you start realizing, I am who I am because of what I went through. I'm amazing. When you love yourself, you could say that, right? Like, I'm a freaking warrior from the stuff that I went through. Like, excuse my language, I'm badass. That's how I feel about me. And because I feel that way, I was unable to lock these amazing gifts my trauma gave me and embrace those like they're a freaking superpower. So I don't regret what happened to me. Do I wish it didn't happen? Hell yeah. Do I wish that my life could have been cookie cutter, leave it to beaver? For sure. But you know what? I can't change it. I got to accept what happened and then move forward. And the only way you can move forward is looking at the windshield, not looking at the rearview mirror. When you're looking at the windshield, you start to realize how amazing this life can be. You start to do the work to heal from your trauma, and you unlock this abundance that you never knew was possible, but you got to love yourself and you got to feel like you deserve it. You got to feel like you're worthy of it. And all of us are. Like, we're worthy of that as humans. Those people of us who've had that start in life in a hole because somebody stuck us there, we deserve that abundance even more. And now it's just going out and chasing it down and getting it. And that's why I do what I do, because I change people's perception of how they even look at what happened to them. Because I've done the work myself, I've lived it.
That's powerful stuff, and you couldn't be more right.
We're going to take a quick break. When we get back, we dive deeper into our conversation with Walt and discuss triggers, self-worth, and self-control. This episode of the Pool Chasers podcast is brought to you by Skimmer.
Hey Pool Pros, my name is Zach Singer.
And I'm Bryce Sarine. We're here with Beyond Pool Cleaning in Scottsdale, Arizona, and this is your Skimmer Tip of the Week. So, back in 2017, one of the main reasons we started using Skimmer was for automated service emails that it sends to our customers after each service stop. And since then, we have done a lot to really get the most out of them.
Oh yeah, it starts off as a nice recap of readings, dosages, and checklist items, but there's several options to really take it to that next level. Customizing the default message in the service emails is a game changer. This can lead to so many great opportunities. Remember when we updated it to promote the variable speed pumps and we sold 3 in the first week?
Yeah, and giving our customers information about pool chemistry and CYA so they understood why we recommend draining their pools occasionally.
Not only educating, but communicating. Like how we let them know when we're going to be off for Thanksgiving and Christmas. My all-time favorites when we started the photo contest.
Right, we challenged our team to add a personal touch, like adding photos of the dogs or making sure the pool looked great. Then you noticed that a really good-looking photo got forwarded to our customers' friends, so we had to add referral messages as well.
We had a lot of fun with that one, especially when our customers took notice of the extra effort.
Just another way Skimmer helped us market to and educate our customers.
To find out more, check out episodes 138 and 154 of the podcast, or go to getskimmer.com/pool chasers. That's getskimmer.com/pool chasers.
I will say, try to be as honest as possible, is that I feel like we've lived in a world for so long where like people milk and brag about trauma and like different things, or like they knew somebody that went through something, so it's now like a part of them. And I'm nobody to judge, but everything I've ever done has been extremely difficult, and I had to always just do it and do it alone. Because, I was in a spaceship in outer space and my parents kicked me out and I was floating by myself. Usually you just float around space forever, but like Ty and his family came in and scooped me up, which never happens. It really is, like in the real world, it's that rare. You know what I mean?
It's the same stuff I've been telling you for years. My dad and you are, to me, the two of the most incredible stories ever. Like, my dad broke the generational curse, and we are who we are. And I think you do the same with yours. And I, like he says, I think you need to believe it. But I've been telling you that for a long time. Like, I think what you've done and what you've beat, and same with your story, like what you've overcome is incredible. And you are like a 1% of people that make that, right?
But super lucky, because I know there's people listening to this that don't have a Tyler in their life. They don't have an aunt. They don't have somebody. And I'm not in your shoes, and I don't understand what that would be like. Like, I really hit the lottery. Who should have been my friend at that point? Like, I was a rebel. I was already frustrated because I had no control over my life. No matter how good I did, no matter how good at sports I was, no matter what, it was none of that mattered. Like, people are just going to be selfish what it comes down to.
But you had to trust, right? Like, you had no reason to trust anybody at that point. So is it a blessing that Tyler and his family came into your life? 100%. But you also had to trust And you had to be vulnerable with his family and you had to accept the love that they were giving you. Right. So you're right. Some people don't have
so
that at all.
difficult.
It's still happening. Yeah.
It's so difficult. Like, I don't want to get into a ton of this stuff, and I know me and you are going to connect, after this, but sometimes I hear people say that and I'm like, it's not that easy. I went from nobody pretty much giving a shit to now people wanting to see
Leave
my
it to Beaver family.
They all eat dinner together. They want to look at your homework. They want to talk about stuff. And a lot of times, like, I just felt like really uncomfortable. And I've told Tyler before, I mean, Tyler was the perfect kid in our school. I had no reason to be hanging around, me, but there is an insane amount of pressure that I would never want on anybody. And I didn't probably think about that now, because as a young kid, you're like this freaking like show off, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. But then it's like that person like shows you love. Mm-hmm. Like, this dude might be the real deal, because it's like, I don't deserve it.
But even now, that feeling where you're looking at your family, you have what you wanted, what you envisioned, right? Because you built what you envisioned. You have it, but I can feel this from you, bro. Like, I can feel you struggling with feeling like you're worth what you have, like you deserve what you have. I feel that from you, where you're fully accepting it for what it is and saying like, hell yeah, man, my life is pretty freaking good, right? And that's when you let go of that layer of pain that sits inside your chest, those last remnants of what you're hanging on to, because you already broke the generational cycle, right?
Definitely.
But you haven't healed yourself where you can have a cup full of 100% love. There's a cap on that cup, because you have to let some things go still. And when you let those things go, now your cup can be all the way full and overflowing. And the way you love people around you changes when you have that overflowing cup. But right now you're fighting to love, right? You're fighting to love not only yourself, but the people around you the way you really want, the way you know they deserve, because you're going to be letting go of some pain that you're still hanging on to. That'll change the dynamic of everything for you, including how you feel about yourself. And the better you feel about yourself, the more your cup flows, the more it overflows, and the more you love your wife, your kids, Tyler, and everybody else around you, man. It is literally transformational, brother. I promise you. I have lived it. I have breathed it. I have cried over it. I have mourned my childhood, all of it. And when you get to the other side of that tunnel, when you get to the other side of that unknown, that fear stops us from going through the unknown and the pain. So we sit in the pain we're comfortable with, even though we're miserable inside and dying inside. When you run through that fear and you run through that pain and you get to the other side of that unknown place, it is full of light and abundance and joy. It just is.
I hear you loud and clear. It's very helpful. I think, and we'll move on from this, because we could probably sit here all day and talk about this, but the thing I struggle with most, and I think a lot of other people do too, is that I am fine like 90% of the time. Mm-hmm. I just take every single thing personal, no matter how much I fight it. My interpretation of what everybody is doing and saying towards me, it can be as simple as just saying okay to my text. And I'll say, oh, you think you're better than me? Mm-hmm. You think you're fucking better than me?
Yeah.
I'll fucking eat you.
Yeah.
Like, you might get a reply like, dude, bro, you can kiss my ass, cancel the whole thing, blah, blah, blah. It's like, what the freak?
Yeah.
What did I send the wrong text? And I'm being, I'm exaggerating a bit, but that is a disease in taking things personal, because it's hard to be stable. Like, everything that happens is just, you just want to react like, oh man, like I got this itch. Like, dude, somebody cut you off. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, you think you're better than me, huh? Got the red Porsche. Okay. Man. Like it's some things are okay, but it's like when one thing happens, it's like the triggers are so much easier, because it's like that wound is open. Mm-hmm. And I know a lot of other people, like, and I won't you know, they probably don't know that I know, but I can see that as well. So I feel like having that, I don't know if empathy is the right word, but knowing how to talk to people, because I see myself in other people and I'm like, how would I want somebody to talk to me? Because it's like, unfortunately, kind of sensitive. Like even Tyler is almost like trained, and I hate to like say that, but he's very skilled at how he communicates with me, because it's like, I remember this, like popping off with even you and Kyle, which was our service manager, where just asked a first question of the day in the morning. Yeah. And I was like, do not just text like what you want and what you need. Like you needed like a good morning, how's it going? And it sounds psychotic, but it's like, do I work for you?
I lived how you feel.
Are you above me? You know, it's all that. And it's never that. It's never that. I can't think of one situation, reflect on everything. I'm like, so far off.
Do you know that's your self-worth? That's you triggering yourself because you don't feel worthy. I promise you, I lived that. It was like, if you were going to punk me, okay. Like we weren't going to bump chests. You had one time when I barked, and if you didn't, I was going to put some hands on you. And to the point where I even almost put my wife at risk one time. 4 guys they stopped and they said something, and I had a metal chair because I was playing in Hoop It Up that weekend, and they're like, get the F out of the way, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, y'all thought I was going to get scared? Is that what you thought? Because to me, I get morphed to being a little boy and being quote unquote punked and belittled and demeaned and beat until I was a lump on the floor. And so I wasn't going to let you do that to me. Now I'm grown. And not only did I want to hurt you with venom from my mouth, I wanted to break your arm. I wanted to hurt you, like really cause you pain. And I'll never forget, like 4 of them, I'm like, why don't y'all get out of the car? You guys thought I was scared. And she's limping on her ankle because she was doing the Roger Rabbit drinking the night before and sprained it on accident. So, and I'm literally swinging. I'm like, you know what? Your friends might get out, but you ain't going to get out. I promise you that. And I went to swing the 4 dudes. They could have got out and just beat the hell out of me, maybe even hit my wife. But I was so triggered in that moment, all I saw was red to them. And so, I have lived that. I have lived that where you're like, you thought you were better. You thought I was a punk. Is that what you thought? I have lived that and that's that where you said like 90% of you's healed. Like you feel pretty decent. That's that other 10, 15, 20% that we hang on to that eats us alive, that makes us reactive. You're always going to be triggered. Like you said you didn't go through trauma in the same way, right? As a human being, you're going to get triggered about some things. Yeah. The intentionality of how you react to those triggers changes when you've healed and you've done this work, right? And so the triggers still happen. The intentionality is different.
I have probably think like I'm like a straight nutcase, and it's not the case. No. People that I am closest to, I've got so much self-control, but it is difficult. And I remember specifically when we were at that Denny's, when we were doing the Christmas podcast.
Yeah.
And I remember, and I could just feel it because people close to me know me so well. Like you guys were just kind of like looking inside of me, because there's 2 other guys in the Denny's, and they were just, they're acting out a little bit, and they know me well enough to know that it's got to be like really driving Greg crazy. And it was level 9. It was up there where wanted to go over there and like
stab him with a fork or something,
just teach him a lesson. You're in a fucking restaurant, idiots.
Right. Yeah, I feel you.
That's why you work at the same place you're freaking having dinner at.
Yeah.
Anyway,
it's funny to me because I like, man, even your facial mannerisms and stuff. I just feel all of that.
Yeah.
But it's scary. But anyway, I don't have to go down that. But it's I'm not even sure where the heck I was going with that. What was I saying?
Just controlling.
Self-control.
Yeah, self-control. But, want to move on to how we get through some of these things. So,
well, before that, let me touch base real quick on the other side, because I think that's a role that people play, like your aunt, right? And or people, your friend that you said you have in your life. Like you made it sound like I'm not you meant to, but that I'm just like perfect and took you under the wing like it was easy or something. I'm a very big believer in God too, and there ain't no way in heck I ever survived our stuff without God. Mm-hmm, yeah. And so I know you believe in that quite a bit now. As I got older in college years, and I had people tell me, and I realized my calling in life was to sow seeds in people, which is a tough job to be tasked with, because a lot of times I don't get to see those results, right? I've had people come in my life all the time for a few years here and there where I've just been able to be a positive influence, and they're gone and I don't never see them again. And then I have people like Greg that I get to see the fruits of that labor quite a bit, right? But I remember several times being 14. No, we were older than that then, because you were a junior. So 16, 17, and we stayed out in my parents' had like a mother-in-law quarters that we lived in together. And I remember throwing my hands up at God several times. Like, why is this kid in my life? Like, why do I have to put up with this and this backlash and this, it was much, much worse when we were younger. Like, he's overcome so much. I'm so proud of all of that. Even the last like 6 months, I think, are an improvement more than that. But, awesome. Like back then it was like a blackout moment, right? Yep. Like you were talking, like blackout moments of no control. And I had to feel that every one of those. This is not gonna be easy. But it's something as like a human being that you see, and that if I wasn't with him on the porch, and that's his own story to tell, but if I always go back to that moment. If I wasn't there, if I wasn't in some of these tougher moments in life, my life as a human being is different, because I know now how to be empathetic, and I know how to be several of those things that you said you've overcome and dealt with. Like, I've got to ride that ride. Mm-hmm. So for me, not having to go through it was a blessing, but I went through it in a different angle where I can understand people's hurt, and I can see it, and I can empathize with them, but also I can also help them get out of it. So it's a different experience, man.
It's purposeful, bro.
Yeah, it's a different experience, but it's people in your lives that God brings, like me. It's never easy for them. It's something that they take on as a task, but it's not because they have to. It's because they choose to. Like, I chose to do that several times. I still, through our whole life chose to do that. So, what I'm getting at is it's changed my life too. And I think people that been in your aunt and other people that ride these rides with people who are hurting, it changes everything, because I didn't go through it, physically or emotionally like he did, but I had the other side of it where I had to help him overcome those things and go through them and move on and become a better person. But I think that's really that's real God. You know what I mean? It's pure to me, that is like pure God, pure love, pure empathy, pure everything. And that's, to me, what God is. And I think a lot of people question God and Christianity and in general because they have an influence in their life of either church or somebody that they knew that said they were a Christian that were horrible. Yeah. And they weren't a Christian and they weren't a good example of God. But like, to me, I don't talk about it a lot, but that's truly what God is. And without God, there's no way I'm doing what we went through. So that's true. Religion to me is a thing. Spirituality. It's true God. It's true touch. It's true. This is real. It's how you see it. And we've had several conversations when they come up. Like, I've never really been one to force God conversations on people, just more through my actions. I try to live that, right? So to me, God's an empathetic God. He's a loving God. He's not a God of force and anger and, in the Old Testament God, like that's what I talk, killing, thousands of people. It's not, to me, it's the love and the caring and the real human being side of things. That's the real thing. And that changed my life. And I look at everything differently, because like I said, I try not to judge people right off the bat. I see hurt. I can see hurt in their eyes. I didn't have to live it. Right. But I lived it in a different way. So that side of things, it's not easy for people who are in your lives who go through that with you, but they choose to because they love you to a degree that you've never been loved before. Like, I feel like I loved Greg deeper, and I do love him deeper than anybody has ever loved him.
I love what you said, because I think people look at somebody who helped somebody that was broken, right? And that's a one-way relationship. Absolutely not. Like, my wife never went through trauma. She loved me through all of my growing, right? But I've helped her grow so much in return, right? Like, that's like yin and yang.
Yeah.
Like, bro, you've helped you grow more in your empathy and your compassionate, right? And being non-judgmental. All the things, because you didn't go through trauma, you could have been, but you're not. And that's why I feel like, and people get tainted because of religion, right? Like, they thump you with religion. But spirituality and a relationship with God is much different than religion, in my opinion.
For sure.
And God is purposeful. And God places people into each other's lives for a reason. Sometimes it's for a season, right? And sometimes it's for a lifetime. And this relationship between even the two of you guys, this is why it's such a fantastic, like, three men sitting in a room, right? We're all successful. We're all professional. We all have families, having a very vulnerable conversation. We need more of this. And the fact that you guys sharpened each other over the years is a testament to just what real, genuine relationships can do. I think it's just, it's beautiful to see.
And I think even what you talked about, like, men to men, like, that's what most men need. And it's, and we don't talk about it a lot, but, like, I genuinely love him, and I think he genuinely loves me, and it's different than what most people see. And I think, like he said, without that, we wouldn't have been successful in our partnership. And I think it would have ended a long time ago. But because of that deep care for one another that isn't really there between men most of the time. Like, I think, because a lot of the hurt comes from the dads, for boys and men. And I didn't have that. Luckily, my dad is awesome. But he broke his generational curse. He had this similar backgrounds to Greg and different things. And he decided that his family is going to be different, and we are. And I'm very grateful for that piece of it. So I've been in the middle of all that, but I've been able to not be a part of that, which is awesome. It's a story in itself. But the men to men thing, the mentorship, what you're doing to me is incredible, because most men, like you said, can't be vulnerable, are told it's weak, don't want to depend on other men because a man has hurt them in their life. And I think it's a really good thing to have, where men can help men change, like you said, their lives and change their generational curses.
It's amazing how much men really do crave that. So I started going to a men's group at church. I'm like, I just feel the calling to do that. I want to be around other men that are at a different place in their walk with God as I walk my own path, because I'm kind of still in my infancy of my walk, right? And they're much further down the road. And it's amazing to see when you're in a room with other men who are willing and have the strength to be vulnerable, where the conversations go. How much people are willing to share. Men, we need respect, right? Like, that's a big piece of being a man. But men need love too. Like, my aunt, it's like in this cave of despair and darkness I was in when I moved in with her. She was just this bright, shining light, this one piece of light I had seen in my entire life of love. And I just basked underneath that light. She was 9 years older than me. She was 24 when I was 15. She was still figuring it out. She ended up getting a divorce when I lived with her. Like, we had parties at the house, like, she was figuring it out. But you know what? She loved me. I knew she loved me. She took care of me. She was my biggest fan, right? She was my biggest fan. She set me up for success. I couldn't have even given you a hug back then. Like, much less a man a hug, but like even my family members, it was like a side hug. Because my affection I had gotten my whole life was abuse. I didn't know how to love somebody the right way. And she'd pinch and punch on me and give me hugs and just loved on me. And I craved that as a young boy. And I crave that as a man. And that's why sometimes men go outside their marriage. Like, they struggle in their marriage, and their wife's not maybe loving them the way they feel like they should. And so there's like this insatiable appetite for love, and somebody gives them a little bit of attention, and they substitute and think that's love. It's not, but they think that's love. And then they sprint towards somebody outside of their marriage instead of working on the person who they've hurt too and making that union better. And so that they can both love each other in a way that works for both of them. So I've seen it so many times. I used to crave the love and attention and affection. And then I met my wife. My aunt got me to a point Even at 19, I almost robbed a Circle K. We had ski masks. We cased out when an old dude was working. Like, we had a gun. We made a commitment not to hurt the guy because I got the angel on, one arm and the devil on the other, right? Made a commitment not to hurt this guy. But even though I had been taken out of my purgatory, I still actually lived inside of it because I held on to the pain, and I didn't even know at that age how to let it go. I just was so angry. And my buddy's mother got sick. She's alive today. She almost died. And he went home to Tucson to be with her. And I had time to think, like, what in the hell am I doing? I'm going to go to prison. This isn't what my life is supposed to be. And I literally can't believe to this day I was actually going to do it. We were going to tie him up. We knew where the camera thing was. Like, I went in there and asked him some questions, just like buying a Gatorade and making conversation. He told me everything I needed to know to do it. And I was gone within 2 weeks to the military. I was like, I got to get the hell out of here. I meet my wife at that point, right? I find my first male mentors in the military. Again, I got to accept them.
Right.
I got to trust that they have my best interests in mind, which opens me up to hurt. And they were amazing. They helped me mold me into being a better man, and gave me an example of how to treat women. And my wife loving me through all of that. And I never raised my voice. I didn't cuss. I definitely never raised a hand to her, but I didn't even want to cuss at her because I'm like, there's boundaries you shouldn't cross. Something's telling me I need to be totally opposite of what I had. But what's opposite? And I'm just doing the best I can. And we grew up together, and it's been amazing. And you know what she's done? She just loves me. She just loves me. And it's cathartic, and it's amazing. And so, yeah. So I'll stop there for a second, but I do want to tell a couple stories about just impact of sharing your story, because I think I want men to really take away from this to speak your truth. And I always say, like, you have one person, you don't have to be on a podcast like me. You have one person that you can speak your truth to. Promise you have one person in your life. And if you feel like you don't, then we'll figure out how people can contact me. Contact me. You can speak your truth to me, because you got to speak that into the air, speak that into the universe. So you can get it off your spirit.
Or reach out to us.
Yeah.
Poolchasers.info@gmail.com.
Yeah.
And if it's not something that we can handle, we know enough people to mentor you up, even with Walt. But thank you for saying that.
We're going to take another quick break. When we get back, we discuss overcoming trauma and the pressures of life, forgiveness, and turning your experiences into a superpower. This episode is also brought to you by Lion Financial. Partner with the industry leader in swimming pool loans, Lion Financial, to make backyard dreams come true. Lion Financial has financing options for swimming pool and home improvement projects of $5,000 and above, including pool equipment. The program offers your customers the very best in pool financing solutions, including rates as low as 2.99%, terms up to 25 years, unsecured loans up to $150,000, options available for credit scores of 620 and above, and no consulting fees. Long-term loan options are now even more affordable, with rates as low as 4.99% for a 20-year term for up to $125,000. It is absolutely free for pool contractors to partner with Lion Financial. Financing options make it easier for your customers to say yes to a pool. Lion Financial never charges prepayment penalties or consulting fees to your clients, and partners with both you and your customers until the project is complete. Lion Financial pays pool professionals directly, ensuring you are paid on time and in full, and now offer more flexible draw schedules to better match your contract. When it comes to something as important as a pool, work with true professionals who have the best interests of both you and your customers in mind. With more than 42 years of experience specializing in pool financing solutions, why trust anyone but the experts? Call Lion Financial today or click the link below for more information.
This episode of the Pool Chasers podcast is brought to you by Leslie's. As a pool service professional, it's important to have the right partners. Leslie's values the important work you do to serve your local communities, and they want to help. With the new Leslie's Pro Partner Program, you can take advantage of the benefits only Leslie's has to offer. As a member of the program, you will get customer referrals and wholesale pricing. Additionally, you can take advantage of Leslie's extended hours during the week and on the weekends. When we were running Brothers Pool Service, we often used Leslie's when we needed supplies, especially on the weekends, and since they have over 900 locations, they were convenient to get to. They also offer free in-store services like water testing and cleaner repair. To learn more, check out episode 151 of the podcast, or stop by your local Leslie's store today to sign up for the program. One last thing you said earlier, like, you know, people are always like, my stuff's not as bad as your stuff, right? But that's not how I think about things. And, you know, everybody, whether it's abuse or pressure or different things you go through, you all have mental things that people are, you know, you're dealing with. Like from my side of things, like he said, being the perfect person, like that's a whole weight on it of itself, trying to be perfect, trying to be, you know, if I get one bad grade, like I get, you know, get in trouble. If I get this and that, it's like there's a lot of opposites to that, where you think somebody's life is perfect and you think they're going through everything is easy for them, but it's not. It's just different. Like you had physical abuse, some people have emotional abuse. There's different ways of it. There's pressures you put on yourself. And in my world, that's what it was. It's a pressure to always be perfect, right? If I'm not perfect, I'm not right. I can't be. And that pops off to being mad at yourself all the time or beating yourself up because you're like, I didn't do it perfect. Why didn't I do it perfect? You know, there's that kind of thing. So everybody, you know, if you're listening to this and you didn't go through some type of abuse, you went through something that affected the way you think, the way you act, the way you live. There's something there mentally that you probably need to overcome to live a better life, you know?
Man, that's deep, because you're absolutely right. And you never, I'm sure, told anybody you felt that pressure. So you're living with this by yourself. You're causing trauma on yourself just trying to excel and do the right thing.
Right.
I had to have a conversation with my daughter not too long about this same thing. Straight A student, she's VP of the student body, like captain of her volleyball team, just overachieves, right? And she's like, oh, I just feel this pressure. Like my coach was like, you could be the first female president. And everybody's like, you could do these amazing things. And I'm like, oh. And I was like, what do you want to do? She goes, well, I want to go to get my degree first. And I was like, what do you want to do after? And she goes, I kind of just want a converted van and to travel. And I was like, okay, so let's say your physician's assistant, was what she talked about, right? So, and you're making a couple $100,000 a year and you're miserable. Or you're making $50,000 a year doing a travel blog and you're happy. What do you think mom and dad really want? Right. She's like, to be happy. And I said, stop trying to run the world. Just live the journey, baby. Stop trying to meet the destination. I spent 44 years getting to a destination, and every time I got there, it was empty because I was like, cool, I made it. Next. What's the next thing? And so here I am, high achiever, like we talked about on the outside, like I'm successful, great marriage, like great job. Inside, I'm dying inside and I'm freaking miserable because I'm trying to be perfect, because I'm trying to like get as far away from my childhood as possible, because I'm never enjoying the journey I'm on. I'm only focused on the destination. So I just challenge everybody listening to this, enjoy the small wins, enjoy the journey, because the destination isn't really what you're chasing. That's not the fulfillment. The fulfillment's in the day-to-day. The fulfillment's being at your kids' games. Fulfillment's coming home. The fulfillment's you know, when you do get good grades.
Yeah.
The fulfillment is getting a B+ and knowing you tried your hardest. And in this time in your life, a B+ was your best.
Right.
And that's okay too.
Yeah.
Man, like, I'm sorry, I get all fired up.
I live it. I mean, I live it.
Powerful.
That's what I mean. We were just talking about this last night. Like my son, I can see myself in my son very much so in being 9 years old and like on the baseball field, and he gets frustrated. He throws the glove down. I'm like, dude, that's me. Like, you know, it's so I get the opportunity to talk to him now about that and be like, hey man, like I don't like you just embarrass yourself way more by losing your cool, right? You can't lose your self-control. And I used to do it all the time. And that was my release, right, of pressure of just like, you know, like just throwing a fit and it's embarrassing because everybody just looks at you more weird because you did that than you missed a ground ball. Like you missed a ground ball, like that sucks, but people forget that. People don't forget you throwing a fit, throwing your glove, punching the wall. Like that's the stuff that, so I get to walk him through how to control that, which I think is pretty special. Just because I know what those pressures are, and I have to teach them the same thing. Like, it's okay. Did you try the hardest? Then that's all that matters to me. Like,
was the effort?
Was it there? That, you know, if you don't give effort, then we have a problem, right? But I care. The fact that you care enough to throw your glove and be pissed, like I like that. But that's not how you got to control it and move past that. Like, so I can help him and help others, I think, by like going through that. And now I've overcome that for the most part. I still have my moments, right, where I lose my
You're human.
control. But anyway,
Well,
I know we want to
interesting?
talk about overcoming a little bit.
You know what's interesting? Let me add one piece to this because this is important because I think dads do this a lot. We don't even realize the pressure we're putting on our kids.
Right.
We don't even realize it. So even in that moment, I'm going to challenge your way of thinking just a little bit. In that moment, say, hey, like I get you're frustrated. I knew why you threw it. It's okay that you threw it. How can we channel that energy differently though? Right. Like you don't have to be perfect. And right, because what we do subconsciously, and I just figured this out not too long ago. So I've made my mistakes as a father, plenty of them. Telling them that they shouldn't feel a certain way. No, that's how they felt. It's okay. Let's just channel that feeling differently. Yeah. How could we do that in a more productive way? And then helping them take the pressure off because maybe your dad, I don't know, right? Maybe your dad, because he broke the generational cycle and he just wanted the best for you so bad. Maybe he wanted the best for you so bad and he wasn't hard on you, but he pushed you, right? And then inside you have this desire to please your father,
right?
Which then makes you feel like you got to be perfect. Yeah. But your dad doesn't really think that. But right. You put, like, as you see how the cycle, everything we do in life comes from our childhood. The good, the bad, and the indifferent. It all stems from the same place. It's so wild.
It's wild.
I want to hear about the story when you ran into your stepdad because that was really powerful to me in what you experienced and how you dealt with it. And you kind of were on the road to, sort of your internal success after that.
Yeah. So I hadn't seen my mom for 10 years. I'm 19 years old, bringing my wife home to, I guess, God, I was maybe 20 years old, bringing my girlfriend, she's not my wife, home to meet my family for the first time. Well, I hadn't seen my older sister, and I hadn't seen my younger sister in a real long time. So I'm like, hey, I'll drive to California. When we come to you, I'll just drive to California. We'll meet up. I want you guys to meet Stephanie. And they're like, cool. So let's just meet at mom's. And I'm like, well, I haven't seen mom in a long time. Right on. So my mom has this boyfriend my sister told me about. I've never met him. So I'm kind of hanging out. It's my little sister, my mother, my older sister, my wife. That's it. Hanging out at my mom's house. Things are great. But then all of a sudden, my little sister's talking to some man. The master bedroom poured out into the carport, right? So she's talking to some man. He's standing at the carport door to go into the master bedroom, and he's talking to my little sister. He's outside, but I can kind of see him as I'm getting a drink of water. She's inside. And so I get my drink, and I'm like, oh, it's a great time. It's good seeing everybody. And I was like, hey, what's up, dude? I'll never forget, man. I look to my right, and I'm like, hey, what's up, dude? And he's like, hey, Walt. And I'm thinking it's my mom's boyfriend. And I kid you guys not, this is the most angry I've been in my whole life. I kid you not. I took 2 steps back into the living room, because their house wasn't big. 2 steps back into her living room, and it hit me who it was. It was Bruce. It was the guy who threw me in the basements and threw me against pictures in the wall and all that stuff, right? And I was taken back to being that little boy with man emotions and a man's size. And I was like, oh man, I wish you guys could see my face on the podcast sitting here. I was like, oh my gosh. And it was horrifying. And I could feel this heat just smoke through my body all at once. Then I looked over at my mom and I'm like, is that Bruce? She's like, yeah. I was like, if you don't get him out of here, I'm going to go frickin' stab him. And I was not. So my mom looks at my older sister like, she was like, Walt does not play. You better get his ass out of here for real. And honestly, and my girlfriend is like, are you okay? That's because she had heard the story at that point. She's like, that's Bruce. Are you okay? And I was like, and I'm trembling because I'm so angry. And my face is red. And my wife's like, when you get angry like that, your eyes kind of glaze over. It was all of it, right? And the only reason I didn't walk over there and do it is because my little sister was standing there talking to him. And so my mom scurries over there and she's like, bye, right? And here I am thinking I'm healing myself, right? I'm starting to let things go, like going into the military. It's like I could create whatever life I wanted. Nobody knew me. I could be me for the first time ever. Just be unapologetically myself. So here I am feeling great about what we're doing. I could tell I'm getting healthier mentally and emotionally. My girlfriend at the times helped me through it. And I really would have stabbed him to death. I to this day, I would have done it. And so I didn't see him. for, I don't know, 10, 11, 12 years. I don't remember the exact time frame. Till my little sister got married. And I'm like, ooh, like, have I really forgiven him for what he did to me? Because at this point, I had been through an extreme amount of my journey, and I had found forgiveness for my abusers because I needed to let the stuff go that I was hanging on to. Like, I had to forgive. That was like the last piece that unlocked real peace in my heart, right? And I'm like, man, like, I'm not going to really know until I see him if I really forgave. So in my head, I'm preparing myself. And, you know, we talked acting with intentionality. If you know that there's going to be triggers around you, I try to stay away from those. I knew that was it. And I saw him and I knew I forgave. And I walked over and I shook his hand. And then I said, congratulations. Now, I didn't sit by him at dinner. You know, we weren't hanging out.
So that was your little sister's dad then?
Yeah, that was my little sister's dad.
Okay.
And he, like, it was fine. And I was like, man, I have really, really let that go. But I was scared for my potential reaction because I didn't really know until I saw him face to face again. And I knew at that moment I had really done the work. And it was a little bit of a different feeling. I don't think I talked about this on Brad's podcast, but it was a little bit of a different feeling for me, like almost like proud of myself. Like, man, I really did let that go. You know, he doesn't have control over me anymore and my emotions anymore. I've really let that go because me holding the hate and me holding the pain only still gave him control over me. And he's dead now, but if I wouldn't have let that go, from the grave, he would have still had control over me. So you got to forgive for you, not for them, for you. You deserve it. You deserve it, and you're worthy enough to forgive so you can move on. Whatever that forgiveness looks like for you, because it's not one size fits all.
And you don't even have to tell them you forgive them, right? I mean,
hell no.
Some people think that, like, I got to go physically look them in the face and say I forgive you, and that's when they feel like they lose the power, right? But really, you forgave them in your heart yourself and didn't ever have to see them again or tell them in person. You moved on from that, right? So I think some people struggle with that. They think they have to go physically make themselves go tell them I forgive you, right? But you don't.
That's what I'm so like adamant about. Forgiveness is for you. Guys have heard me say that probably 7 or 8 times on this podcast. It's really for you.
You forgive them in your heart and you move on. I mean, I'm not saying that's easy at all, but I'm just like, I feel like some people really feel like they have to go face that fear and face that person in real life. And that's not the case. You have to forgive in your heart and just move on. Right.
Now,
and
if you want to do that, and that's what your heart is telling you to do, to forgive, you want to go do that, fine. You don't owe it to anybody because they're going to have to deal, when their day comes, they're going to have to account for the things that they did.
Right.
But when they move on with their life and you're still struggling because of the pain they caused you, you're relinquishing that power to them still.
Right.
And so initially it was like taking my power back and like anger driven, right? And then it was like, I just want to be happy, man. I'm sick of feeling like shit. I'm sick of feeling angry. I'm sick of feeling like somebody's punking me out or acting better than me. I'm sick of that. I gotta let this stuff go so I could be the best version of myself for my wife, because now we're married, and my daughter. We had our first daughter at that point. I was like, I really gotta let this go. And I did. And it really is the switch that moves you from still kind of being in that victim mentality and that emotion of being a victim to really being a warrior of your abuse. And really fighting for yourself because you're worthy and you're deserving, and fighting for those around you, and fighting for the best life that you have. And you have to fight with everything you have, because once you do it, and once you win that piece of your life back, you just don't know unless you've done it. And I've done it. That's why I get so passionate about it. If I could rip it out of people, I would do it.
And I think the people who overcome the things that you guys have overcome, though, you have such an advantage at a lot of things in business and in life. Like if you can do that, you've gone through so much that you have an advantage over most people, because you know how to grind, you know how to do it, you know how to work until you get to that point. Whereas some people, Gary Vee always talks about like the immigrants having an advantage over some, rich people, because the rich kids, they don't have to do anything. I mean, they have their own personal problems that's a separate conversation, but they were handed everything in their life, right? They're handed, here's your car, here's your job, you can come work for my Fortune 500 company. Here's it's, I'm like at these rich kid funds, right? Then that comes with its own emotional toll. But, the people who have to live through that and grind through that. And if you can overcome it, like you have such a, I don't know if it's advantage is the right word, but you have such a step forward.
Bro, you have a superpowers.
Yeah,
that's
superpowers. That's a good way to say it.
That's how you have to think of it, because that gets you looking out the windshield of life. Bro, that empathy, that grit, that resilience, the stones to take chances. You have perspective nobody else has unless you've been through trauma, because you know what it could really be like. It gives you a major life advantage. It is literally like a superpower. When that switch clicks in your brain, when you've really healed and you've let it go, and then you embrace these gifts that you have, that you receive from your trauma, and you realize, man, like, I am who I am because of the shit that I went through. I am who I am because of the trauma I went through. And I'm an amazing human being that now has these superpowers that they could use for good. Y'all, I'm stone cold. You guys are sitting here with me. You guys see my body language. I'm stone cold serious about this. And when you think about your trauma in that way, and you think about, I'm going to unlock my superpowers, I'm going to unlock this next version of who I am, and you start to run towards that, it's amazing how quick you can heal. It's amazing how quick you can heal and let go of the rest of the stuff.
So many people live in that, like we were talking about the people that work for us before, like so many people live in that, this is just who I am, this is just how it is mentality of like, I was dealt a bad hand, it just is. And I'm not in no way saying it's easy, because I know it's not.
But that was a constant reminder to myself,
right,
that Greg, don't make excuses like everybody you ever talk to.
Right.
Everybody you talk to has an excuse why they can't do something. Don't be that person. If you screw up, just say, I messed up. I woke up late. I dropped the ball. I did this. Not like, I'm just poorly made. I'm just this and I'm that. And you're just blaming everybody.
100. And you know what it is like, and I can say this because I acted like a victim for a long time. You have a victim's mentality. And some people get so pissed when I say that. And I'm like, good, get pissed. Because if it pisses you off, it's going to stir your soul, and it's giving you something to think about. Like, at some point, you have to move from being a victim, because your life is going to continue anyway. Why not make it amazing?
All right.
Like, you're literally going to get a year older a year from now. So imagine being healed and doing all the things you've ever wanted to do and feeling like you do, right? Or still feeling like a victim and holding on to those 100% of what you have, or 10%, right? So it's really a choice. It really is, guys. And people are like, it's not a choice. I can say it because I lived through some heinous shit. Yeah. So I can say it. And when I tell my story, I don't tell my story to be like, oh, look at me. I literally write in a memoir. My wife got me to do it. The only reason I'm doing it is for those people in the struggle. If you want to compare stories, say, Walt's just a normal dude. If he can make it through that, then I know I can make it through my stuff. Let's go, right? And that's where people's mindset needs to be at. But it's really hard to feel that way when you're in the struggle. And I know, because I was in the struggle for a long time. But I know what it's like when you get out of the struggle. And it's amazing, man. It's phenomenal.
And it takes a long time. It takes a journey. It's a journey.
It's a life journey, guys. Like, it's not
But I think
easy.
that's the most important thing. Like, everybody has to accept that it's not easy. Like, I've done a lot of like difficult things, and I feel like even taking on a difficult task, I'm like, yeah, I can do that. I can do that. Things mentally, it just seems like that's impossible. Like, I just tell myself I can, but I can't, And it's just, I think you just have to accept that it's not going to be easy. That's probably like almost the first, hurdle. It's like, it's not going to be easy. The easier you accept that and just kind of get past that, the better it'll be.
And I think one of the gifts that God's given me that a lot of people struggle with is that I understand like the journey you went through, and when stuff does happen, like it does, I have more empathy because of that. But I don't know. It's just something that goes in my head. Like, I know that there's stuff that you went through, and it's a journey, right? That you'll get better from it, and you'll keep moving on. And I can forgive you for certain things or forgive my dad for certain things because I know that you've gone through all this junk in your life, right? And to me, it's like, well, if you are 95% a better human being, I can forgive that 5% until it gets to 4%, until it gets to 3%, until it gets to 2%, right? So that's different than most people. I feel like I have been through it with you, and I know my dad's stories, and like I'm okay with that to a certain degree. I'm okay with getting hurt by you or by anybody, right? But I'm okay with understanding that you went through something and your journey is not complete. And if I can help you complete the journey, then maybe that will never happen again, or maybe it'll happen way less often, right? So,
but the journey is never complete, right? It's
never.
It's lifelong, bro.
Sure.
Like, to me, if you're not progressing, you're regressing. So to me, like, even if I felt exactly right, I've still got so much growth. I'm growing right now, but if I will always be 99% at the best.
yeah.
Right? Because I'm
That's a better way to say
always gonna be improving myself. The journey is so hard because there's deep emotions connected to it. Emotions that are locked in the recesses of who we are as a human being. The deepest, darkest secrets and the shame that we hold on to that we don't let go, that's the stuff that eats us up. So it's like piece by piece by piece. But it's the decision to say, I deserve more. And I'm going to take the steps to do it. So for some people, that's therapy. For some people, it's working with someone like me who's a coach. I'm not the guy, if you need 3 or 4 years of therapy, I'm not the guy who can really help you. If you're in the last 25% of your journey and you're like, man, I'm almost there, I just need someone to, I'm reaching down my hand, I'll snatch you up and bring you over the top of the mountain with me. And so there's different things you can do. Not all of it's even monetary. There's free resources. It's just taking steps and moving forward through the pain and the unknown and the scariness and the fear of what you think you're going to uncover. Because the reality is what you end up uncovering is your best version of self. But I think I was about 30 years old before I really felt like I was good. Where I felt like I was good, and having kids really wanted me to accelerate that process, right? I still get triggered off of stuff. I still react poorly every once in a while. It's just rare now. That's why it'll be a lifelong journey, because I'm never going to react perfectly to that.
I just say what I say from the outside human perspective to people that have dealt with trauma or dealt with these big things, because I think the human race in general is not empathetic enough to people's emotions and feelings. And that's what I really mean by, I don't think I'm special. I think I've worked hard to be able to do that. And I'm not saying that to brag or anything. I just think I have a gift that a lot of people struggle to get. And that's to understand what people are going through. And that if they hurt your feelings, there's probably a reason that hurt your feelings, right? It was, people don't try to hurt you just to hurt you most of the time. It's because they have a hurt, or they had a bad day, or their grandma died, or something. You have no idea what's happening with their personal life. And I think that happens a lot in the workspace, where people just get pissed or upset at people, and they're like, well, that guy hates me, or this and that. It's like, dude, you must have just triggered something that bad day, right? It may have just been one day that you had an interaction with that person. And that's the human race in general. It doesn't give enough people empathy. Like, you have to see that other people are hurting, other people are going through things, and you have to be a little bit empathetic. Now, it's not an excuse for people just to be jerks all the time. It's not what I'm saying. You shouldn't be treated like a stepping stool, but.
Well, that's my biggest thing, is that I do not want to drag people I love the most. I have a tight circle, and I don't want to drag the people I love most through the mud anymore, because it's gotten to like the point where like if something happens, I don't even want to say I'm sorry, because it's like being ashamed. It's like, I don't want to lie to anybody. I don't even know if, like, obviously this has been going on most of my life. I don't even know if I have self-control over what happens, and it's, wanting, it's complicated. That's all the best I can say, but do say that it gets better. If you like really work at it and like try to like let things go. And I feel like one of the best things I did was I heard you speak, And something told me like, you're constantly in training of digesting things, and it has helped me, but it's like I needed to reach out to you, because it's like, I don't know if I can talk to you, but it's like, you need to probably talk to somebody that hasn't been there from the beginning, you know? And it's like, Tyler's been with me for the long haul, and he's one of a kind. It's my guardian angel. That's a fact. But, you know, even to make me even better mentally, it's like talking to somebody. And I say that because if anybody feels the way I do, or maybe Walt, you know, in your past, you know, it's probably good to talk to somebody. To be honest, I didn't even realize this until recently, how many people actually have had counseling or have seen a psychiatrist or things like that. Like, a lot of people are like, you? I'm like, what do you think? No. But I think it's a good thing. And Tyler and his parents, my family, are also important. It's not about being alpha male. It's not about, you know, being the hardest worker in the room. It's not about any of that. It's about doing whatever it takes to like live the rest of your life happy and stop dragging people through the mud. Just having patience, not take things personally, forgive and love, and go to sleep at night and embrace the new day.
You will get there. I know you will get there, because you have the self-awareness and then intentionality of doing something like even just reaching out to me, because you put the podcast together. We didn't even meet, right? And then you reached out to me.
And if you don't know me that well yet, but I don't do that.
Right. But that's how I know you're ready to just drop the rest of the pack that you've been carrying your whole life. I'm so unequivocally positive about that, because you also have the awareness of how it impacts the people around you, of how it's impacting you. Like
it's because you've been through far worse, and I need that. I can't take advice from people that don't know how I feel.
Yeah.
And that's not to be rude to anybody, and it's just my view of what I think is worse than some of the pain I feel. Like, there's that connection, I guess, in a weird way.
Well, you know what's interesting is like people, because I've kind of asked people as I've been on this journey myself, what makes you gravitate towards me? Because everything is happening. I know it's God's plan. I know it's his purpose, because it's happening so fast. And they say, like, I had somebody tell me, I've been seeing a therapist for 3 years. I've met with you twice, and I feel like I'm so much further ahead than I've been. I'm like, one, I think the therapist prepared you to deal with me, because I'm going to hold you accountable, and we're going to have real candid conversations. And I said, but I didn't learn this from a book, right? I didn't learn any of what I'm helping people with from a book. I learned it by living it, to your point, right? I learned it by living it. I learned it by suffering. I learned it by being ashamed of who I was. I learned it by taking steps forward and healing. I learned it by reaching out to people. And so, you know, coaches and guides for stuff, the problem is there's so many people that are about the money, and they're fake. Right. You know, so people are suspect of that. But working with a coach or guide who really has real life experience, but is truly invested into it for the service and the impact of people, you're working with somebody like that to accelerate the process, because they lived it, they've been there, they've done that, they got the T-shirt. Now you're like, all right, I'm ready to do this final phase of work to get there. So it's a beautiful thing, man. Like I can just tell when people are ready. I know we just literally met today outside of some text back and forth and some messages back and forth. Like, you're ready, man. You're ready, and you deserve it, and you're worthy of it.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm
so
excited
much.
for you.
I've been ready, way past due. Yeah, but hey, thank you so much, Walt. This was an amazing talk, and I know it's going to help a lot of people. And I look forward to connecting with you, and hopefully people come forward. And if you really want help, somebody to talk to, it's not about putting people on blast and all these different things. It's about just getting right in your mind, not only for your business, but for your family. That's the most important thing. If you don't have that and you're always worried about them not being there, that's really no way to live. And there's all different levels to this. If you feel anything, something's got to be taken care of. So thank you. And just, you're a huge inspiration and kind of a hero. So appreciate your time.
Appreciate that. I want to let the listeners know one more. This is really important to me because it just happened this week. So I'm going to try not to get choked up when I'm telling it. So, you know how you got choked up, right?
Yeah.
You got choked up because impact. You don't get choked up talking about yourself. Right. You get choked up talking about helping somebody.
Right.
This whole process that I'm in and this trying to be a lighthouse in the darkness that people can go to. What I didn't expect was how it was going to impact people closest to me. So my mother, who suffered for 66 years, she's 66 years old. She now reached out to me this week and she says, I'm hurting. Will you call me tomorrow? So I'm like, all right. So she literally asked me during the conversation, she goes, how did you really heal yourself? I'm so tired of suffering. And I said, if you really want to do the work, I'll walk you through the journey, not as my mother. I'm going to walk you through the journey like I would anybody. You're not going to use excuses of not doing the work because I'm your son. And I told my mom, I said, first of all, I said, it doesn't matter your age. If you got 15 years left of your life, why not live it happy? If you got 6 months, why not live it happy? You deserve it. She went through horrendous sexual assaults, abuse, narcissistic parents or mother, all of it, right? Crazy stuff, which left her empty as a mother when it came to having us. So she wanted to love us, right? I'm sure of it. She saw us get abused. I didn't talk to her for 10 years, neglect, abandonment, all that issues I had, right? So I told her, I was like, you only had a 50% cup. Like I to give the cup analogy. And she goes, more like 35%, I think. I said, okay. Better. You had a 35% cup of love to give to yourself and your children. You wanted to give it. Your capacity to do it wasn't there. Imagine a year from now, however long it takes, because everybody's journey is different, right? Imagine a year from now, you're 67. You're going to be 67 either way, right? It's happening. Imagine if that cup's 100% full. Imagine how you could love yourself and the people around you that you want to pour into different. Your want doesn't change, Mom. I know you love me. I know you want to love me in a certain way. You just don't have the capacity to do it today, but you could if you're willing to do the work for tomorrow. And that tomorrow is coming either way. So love, and men feel this way too, I know. The capacity to love is so important. The capacity starts with you and ends with you. And if you can fill that cup up, the difference in the way you love people is palpable. You can feel it. You could it's just different. It was different for me too, once I got through the stuff I needed to get through. So I just, I appreciate you guys having me on. I'm so passionate about this topic. And like you said, I could talk about this.
That's incredible, man.
I literally worked with a company today talking about the same thing for 2 hours. And we've been sitting here for a couple hours probably. And I can't get enough of it because I know there's so much pain. There's so much pain out there, man. I can't live my life knowing that I could have did something about it, and I didn't. Right. And so that's what I'm driving for, is that impact and to help people understand and learn how to fight to be the hero of their family.
It's awesome, man. Yeah, thank you so much. And tell us about your memoirs coming out in January, right?
Oh yeah, how people can reach out to you.
Can reach out
so
to you.
You can go to my website. I just finally got it up 2 weeks ago, you guys. I was felt like I could have been a dog chasing my tail. I was so damn excited. So it's waltmckinley.com. Super simple. And hopefully you guys can link it on the site. So check that out. That's got everything. It's got my social media stuff on there. I do content. That's free content. You can go on there, watch videos, look at some other stuff. Just kind of get that daily inspiration to keep you moving when you need it the most. And then I wrote my memoir, Monsters in My Closet. I'll show you guys when we're done. The book art, I have the back cover and I have the front cover now.
I saw the front cover on your Instagram.
Premium.
Yeah,
man.
Yeah.
And it's all predicated on the hook story of me being in that basement, and that's the visual.
It's really awesome.
It's really, that's coming out January 15th. So my book release will be then. I'll be doing it local in the Phoenix, Arizona area. So if people want to come, they can get a copy, get it signed, and do that, and start to have that dialogue. So on my website, there's a couple different pieces of the front page you can scroll through. One of them is if you'd like to just get updates on the book. I'm going to be sending out some sneak peeks and probably a little bit about in a couple chapters. And those people who sign up will get a little bit more of a preview than most others. You can sign up for that. And then there's also a spot on there if you feel the pull to connect with me and see if there's something that we can do together and I can help guide you through the journey of healing so you can be your best self for you and those people around you. You can fill out a little form on there. Obviously, all that's confidential. It's really important to me that people know that there's a safe space, a non-judgmental space, and a safe space where they can open up without fear of somebody else finding out what they're talking about until they're ready to let other people know themselves. That's not my space. I'm just holding a place for those people to help them through their journey.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you for your service as well. We didn't really talk about your 20 years in the military, but we appreciate that. And I think you're genuine and real. And that's the last thing I want to say. I have a hard time with motivational speakers, to be honest, because like you said, most of the time they have an agenda or they're out to sell something or it's all about money. And I don't think that's the case with you, or you wouldn't be on here. I really thanks for sharing your story. And I really like to meet genuine people who care about other people. So
Appreciate that, brother. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Hey, Pool Chasers. Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed the episode. To connect with today's guests, including pictures, links, and resources from everything discussed today, you can visit the episode page at poolchasers.com or click the links below. To connect more with us, you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter by searching at Pool Chasers. If you would like to support the podcast, the easiest and most effective way is to subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube, as well as share the show or your favorite episode with a friend or on social media. Also, you can get early access to each episode by supporting us through Patreon. We know your time is valuable, so thank you for sharing some of yours with us today.
See you out there, Pool Chasers.